Welcome to the Human Frequency. It is the end of May, it's almost June, and we woke up to cloudy June gloom type skies today, and I looked at it and I said, okay, this is some geoengineering, and it looks like it's transmuting, and sure enough, we got a rain out of nowhere on May 31st, and I can only attribute this rain to Orgone energy.
Yeah, we've done a lot of work over the past several years. You can go to our blog, thekembo.tumblr.com, and see exactly what we do and exactly where we do it. And time again, we see the same thing. We see a removal of the geoengineering toxins. We see natural weather coming in uninhibited, and we see this in all sorts of climates. We see it in deserts, valleys, mountains, on the coasts. It's a beautiful thing to be able to take matters into your own hands like this.
And we've seen others doing it as well. A lot of people do not record what they're doing, which I totally understand. But then there's people out there like George Ritchell from Organize Africa, who has put out some really good videos on the changing skies that he's seen. He did a global BEM, the Breakthrough Energy Movement Conference, where he talked all about his work. And there's Dwayne Gardner, who goes as Orgonite Austin on YouTube. He hasn't done much in a while, but he was doing amazing work. I'm sure he still is. I think he's just off the radar right now. He wrote a book called The Science of Rain, and he did a lot of work in Texas, totally busting drought there, as we've done in California. So, the way we do it is we neutralize the deadly radiation sources which are inhibiting rainfall. We'll talk more about that. I talk about this all the time, but we neutralize those sources and we see great changes. So I get a little confused when I get contacted by people in LA who talk about the horrible chemtrails. And, we live now just under 2 hours north of LA, but we basically get the same weather, and we go into LA a lot. And so I see what's going on there. And even on days when I've been in LA looking at the sky, I hear from people who say it's been a nightmare on that day. And I look at the sky and I say, hey, this looks great. Look at all that cleaning up. It looks beautiful. I don't understand what people are seeing sometimes.
Well, they need to take the time to go to our website, thekembo.com, and check out the photo gallery, because you're still going to see chemtrails. I mean, I feel like I said this recently. It's like a computer program. You're still going to see them spraying. It doesn't matter how much orgonite you have. They're still going to try. But you have to learn to spot what happens up there when it's being cleaned up. And that's what's going on most of the time now, in Los Angeles anyway.
Mm-hmm. Well, people just cannot believe a lot of the time that such a small device can do so much. And the way that the orgonite works and can clear so much space is the energy is incredibly powerful. And if you put it near a DOR source, that's a deadly orgone radiation source, such as a cell tower, it works even harder, because not only do you get the neutralizing effects on the EMF of the tower, but the orgonite itself is agitated. The orgone energy becomes agitated by the DOR source and works even harder. These devices are incredibly powerful, and that's testament to the power of our own life force energy and how much stronger it is than these petty little energies of death being, emitted by these petty little parasitic tyrants.
Well, I think that was one of the main things we noticed early on. It's like, this little thing is undoing this multi-billion-dollar operation, and as we learned, it's not even a human operation.
It really isn't. But you know how, people are looking into ways to grow crops and have natural forms of pesticide. Like, you can use certain flowers, I think, to detract from certain insects coming into your garden. I think that you can also get certain bugs, like ladybugs, that eat up the bad bugs. There's ways to use natural remedies for these problems. And orgone energy is a natural remedy. And so it does seem strange, like, that we could get these very simple materials together and do so much. But that's how the whole world is. Everything is simple, and everybody's overcomplicating everything.
Yeah,
and the simple solution of orgonite does so much. Now, everybody thinks that I'm crazy, right? Because I'm putting out these little tiny devices,
no,
right?
You're not crazy.
It's a perfectly sane thing to do.
Yeah. You are not Lloyd Braun.
No, I don't think anybody knows what you're talking about right now.
Well, there's
the
some that might.
Seinfeld fans.
I'm sure they'll email us in droves saying, "Oh my God, a Seinfeld reference!"
Yeah,
again for the umpteenth time.
So yeah, since we can find natural remedies, another example, cancer therapy. We recently had a guest on our show, John from Australia, talking about Gerson therapy that cured him of cancer. This therapy is just nutritional. That's all it is. It's all nutrition. So, many doctors would say, well, you need, tens of thousands of dollars worth of chemotherapy
Yeah.
and all this stuff that
It's
is
very involved treatments.
it's very complicated, it's very destructive, and it's not natural. So if
And it's
you
not
can-
necessary.
It's not necessary. So if you can cure cancer by eating fruits and vegetables, and you can keep pests out of your garden with ladybugs, then why can't you clean up the energy field of cell phone towers with something simple that you can make in your garage?
And anyone can utilize it. I'm guessing that's why it's been so under attack recently.
Well, absolutely. It's the same reason that natural cancer cures are under attack, and that's the same reason that cancer treatment doctors are getting killed, and that's the same reason that, most of our crops are sprayed with pesticides, because these companies like Monsanto, they want to produce huge amounts of, terrible, unhealthy food for us. And they want to kill off the pests as easily as they think they can do it. Well, the thing is, we don't want gigantic farms with gigantic amounts of GMO corn. We want small farms run by a few caring individuals, small amounts of food, treated well with love and with natural pest solutions.
Mm-hmm. And you're not going to get any of those things by appealing to the government. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, well, we talk about that all the time. The government's a business. It can't do anything for you. You might as well go appeal to Walmart.
That's a funny thought. Just standing out there with the sign picketing.
Well, then that's another thing, the whole picketing thing. I don't do it anymore.
We used to.
Yeah, we used to do the protests, the March Against Monsanto. If anything, the protests are a great way to meet like-minded individuals.
And a great way to be off of Facebook, for the most part.
Yeah, as long as you're not on your phone, like, reporting on every little thing you're doing at the march.
Right.
Well, it's been really tough lately for the Orgonite gifting community because it's been under attack. I guess it's been under attack since the beginning. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Back in the early days, around the year 2000, when Don Croft and his wife Carol figured out that you could gift Orgonite, you could make them and distribute them into the environment and clean the chemtrails out of the sky and neutralize deadly radiation sources. When they figured that out, they became very much under attack. I don't think there's anybody working in this field who hasn't been under attack. I mean, George Ritchell was put in jail while gifting Orgonite in Africa. They didn't know what he was doing.
Mm-hmm. In some way, shape, or form, everyone who does this work, truly does it, they are in some way under attack.
Absolutely. There's so much incorrect information going around right now, and I get a lot of emails, and I get a lot of confusion. And some of the biggest confusion that I'm seeing is from people who are still being pulled in different directions, like they listen to the anti-geoengineering groups, but they also listen to me. And because they're being pulled in these different directions, whereas the solution I advocate is to make and distribute Orgonite.
And the only solution,
right?
Really.
And the solution the anti-geoengineering groups are advocating is to appeal to the government and to protest and make noise and raise the alarm.
Yeah, oftentimes, and those are not solutions.
Right. So you get people that are being pulled in both directions. And I understand, because we're all looking for answers, and you're going to want to look at everything that's out there on the topic that you're concerned about. And in this case, many of us are very concerned about what we see in the sky. I know that I used to be very afraid of it till I learned solutions. So anyway, these emails I get, they're a little bit confused because people are getting some correct information from some sources and some incorrect from others. There are some sources that put out some that's correct and some that is incorrect. And you just have to be able to sort through all this mess, because really, we don't know exactly what's going on. We know to the best of our ability what's going on, and we do our best to just give you the truth as we see it. So,
be discerning.
So, the confusion. I have heard many people saying that we need to get together to solve this problem. And really, Don Croft was absolutely correct when he said that Orgonite gifting he said it's an unorganized network, and that it must remain unorganized in order that it does not get infiltrated. So we do it on our own, just the two of us. Occasionally we've involved a third friend, someone very trusted, and that's just the way we work, and I think that that's a very safe way to do it. You don't really want to, first off, you don't necessarily want someone seeing where you put it. It's better if you keep it to yourself. We'll say, hey, we did this area, but I won't show where we put them.
Well, we don't even know.
I know.
After we've left a place, we couldn't find the tower busters that we distribute. I mean, it for the most part, it's just the two of us, and you don't need to reveal anything other than just general areas that you've taken care of. But even then, you need to go back and do maintenance gifting in those areas sometimes. So, really, on this point, Don Kraft, while I do disagree with him on several things, actually, on this, he's spot on, is that it must remain unorganized and you must not get together. There is no collectivism in this. It's only individuals doing it, and that way it can't get sabotaged.
Well, we can all get together separately, and that's the way it has to be done. Everybody lives in a town or community that needs Orgonite. So take care of your town or community, and then someone else will do theirs, and eventually you'll have a grid across the entire country with Orgonite. But yeah, it's something where if you're telling everybody what you're doing or you're getting a bunch of people together, you don't know who's getting involved. Plus, also, you got to be really careful. People are very, very heavily mind controlled. A lot of people are not in control of what they do, what they say, and who they blab to. And that's one thing, is you want to make sure that it's someone you really, really trust, that's in their right mind. So,
if people like that even exist anymore.
Well, they do. It's just the cell phones have really taken over people's brains. We definitely advocate for gifting without a cell phone. If you are on a long trip and you need one, definitely turn it off and wrap it in foil. Do something to make sure your signal is not getting out there.
I would say that's more a requirement than something optional. You got to have that thing off because it's designed for mind control. The communication is a secondary feature.
So the main way that Orgonite gifters get attacked, it's not like we get run off the road and that they try to find ways to arrest us. It's not actually how the attacks usually happen. Because we're dealing in etheric warfare, we're attacked etherically, which you might say, oh, no big deal. The mechanistic mind would say that's no big deal. But if you're thinking about things, as a whole, and you realize that your mental state is a lot of your health and how you operate and your well-being, and you understand it's not just about your body, it's not just about getting run off the road or thrown in jail. What are they doing to you mentally while you're gifting? You can get very well tortured mentally while gifting if you're not careful, because that's what they want to do. Now, the Orgonite will protect you to a degree, of course, because it neutralizes deadly frequencies. But if you've got a mind control device with you that's sending out signals to deliberately, change the way you think, it could put in some pretty bad thoughts. So, you can end up having fights. We've had fights before while gifting, when we spent too much time by a cell tower, not even realizing we were near a cell tower before gifting it, So things happen. So you just have to be careful, be on guard, just don't let yourself be attacked in this way. There's a lot of these, a lot of keywords and phrases that I notice in emails and just on people's websites that are kind of the red flags that you need to watch out for when it comes to solving the problem of chemtrails and geoengineering. There are a ton of activist groups out there, and they will say specific things. So you have to find the truth within all this information. And I'm finding extremely contradictory things online these days.
Well, Sharon, what you just mentioned is one of the first ones you see, is this whole get together mentality. We must join forces, join hands to take this down. And it simply doesn't work that way.
The humans have a need for friends, for family. The humans need to feel like they belong. They need to be part of a group. It seems to be painful to human beings to operate alone. In fact, I think that people find it painful to just be alone with their own thoughts.
Hence the cell phone addiction.
And as soon as you start thinking about something, you grab that phone. Because otherwise, you're going to be thinking about something you don't want to think about.
Don't want to be alone with those thoughts.
Well, the thing to do with those thoughts, of course, is to start a meditation practice and begin to quiet them. But that's easier said than done. So I'll talk about that a little later, maybe on another episode when we get into meditation. But I've come up with some good techniques on freeform meditation that help to quiet the mind somewhat for people who don't like to meditate.
Well, that get-together mentality that's got to be dismissed, I think.
Well, yeah, the humans feel a need to be part of a group. And if you're not part of a group, you feel ostracized sometimes. The thing with Orgonite gifting is, if it's making you feel weird that you're taking this into your own hands and distributing Orgonite in your community, just keep it to yourself then, because you're doing a lot of good. And if you feel strange about doing it alone, or you feel strange like that people will look at you as a weirdo or a lunatic or something like that, then just keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
You're doing a
Don't
world
involve
of good.
them.
You're helping them and they don't even know it. You're neutralizing sources of deadly radiation by their houses that have been keeping them awake all night and making them agitated and sick. And you're doing so much good. So keep on doing the good work. Don't worry about who knows you're doing it. If you do feel confident in acting alone, which, I can't say I act alone. I act with Gabriel. We work together, but we work together alone. And I have not had any desire in the last couple of years to get together with a group of people on this topic. Mm-hmm. It's like your desire for that goes away, because when you're working with the cosmic Orgone energy, you're put in touch directly with your own life force energy, with the life force of the universe. So when you're acting on behalf of the universal life force energy, you're so connected with every living thing in a way that you could never be through Facebook or through even a meetup group. You're in touch with the entire cosmos when you're doing this work. So how much more connected do you need to be? It may not seem like what you're used to. You're used to being together with other humans, but there are other ways we can get together. And I think that for Orgonite gifting, I have to agree with Don Croft on this. This must be done discreetly and on your own.
Mm-hmm. And another point along those lines is that you must be prepared to be an unsung hero in this work. You will not get the recognition for it, but you will see the confirmation that it's the right thing to do, not just by what you see in the sky, but how the parasites try and dissuade you from doing it. Mm-hmm. So that's a red flag right there.
Yeah, a lot of the dissuading I've gotten recently has been, again, in the form of distracting messages where I feel compelled to reply to as many emails as possible because I want to help everybody out. I unfortunately can't reply to everything if it's just too far gone. I can't reply to the mind-controlled people that I can't reply to insults for sure. And if someone cusses me out in an email, you're probably never going to hear from me again, quite frankly.
I don't think people quite understand how busy we actually are.
They can't.
And I'm not saying this like in a self-important, ego-based way. I'm literally saying that we have so much to do. We can't help everyone. We do our best, and our best is going to change from one day to the next, but ultimately we are just here to provide information, and people can take it or leave it.
Well, we're also here to gift as much as possible, and we are gifting as much as possible. But again, the education part comes in and we have to produce content. And I'm working on this book, which is very important because the book is going to explain really weather modification as I know it, as I understand it, and how the work of Wilhelm Reich and orgonomy relates to the weather and exactly what has happened in all the various locations we've worked in. So the book is going to be about Orgone energy, about weather modification and the weather war. And specifically, it's going to be a scientific analysis of the various places we've done the work and the results we've seen, which have been consistent in varying climates. So this is a big deal to work on this. So I am trying to get this done, I'm hoping, by the end of the year. I wanted to do it last year, and it just didn't happen. So.
Well, deadlines are no good. It comes out when it comes out. And another thing the book will have is just sort of dictating how our results have more or less mirrored his in their own way. Mm-hmm. But the similarities that we find between what we're doing now and what he was doing over 60 years ago.
Yeah, and it's also going to be taking orgonomy into the current age, which is something that people have a lot of trouble understanding, is that the science of orgonomy was developed by Wilhelm Reich and discovered by him. But there needs to be a furthering of this science.
Absolutely.
We need to start to use what he gave us in our everyday lives, which he hadn't gotten to that yet. But that's where newer people today need to come in and carry on the work and figure out ways to bring it into the modern age, which Don Croft did by Orgonite gifting. Carl Wells invented Orgonite, so that was invented in the mid-90s. And then Don Croft said, hey, these are easy to make. Let's make a ton of these and distribute them. And then George Ritchell took up the Orgonite gifting in 2002 in Africa, and by now he's distributed 25,000 Orgonite tower busters and totally turned around the climate, brought back rainfall, and brought much happiness and peace into the land. So you can learn more about that by going to George Ritchell's YouTube and checking out Organize Africa, and that's ORGONISE Africa.com. George Ritchell, that's RITSCHL on YouTube for more about that. So yeah, he's done great work, and he's carrying it on into the modern day. I think Orgonite gifting is the way we carry on Reich's work.
Absolutely it is, and there are many people doing it. And yeah, to echo your point, Sharon, you can't just remain in 1953 forever. It's the work has got to move on, and we're seeing a lot of staunch opposition to that these days.
Well, another major keyword that you need to watch out for, or key phrase that you need to watch out for when looking for solutions to the chemtrail problem, is going to the government. If someone says, we've got to go to the government, they do not understand the nature of geoengineering or the nature of government. There's two problems there.
Yeah.
So geoengineering, chemtrails, I'll have to say at this point, through all the research and work we've done, I still think it's inconclusive what's actually in there and what's going on up there. I don't necessarily believe everything I read or see, even if it's done by scientists. So as it is right now, our understanding of chemtrails is that it is aluminum, barium, and strontium nanoparticulate heavy metals, and that it's being used in conjunction with the energetic warfare. That is our current understanding of what's going on up there. But in addition to that, we've seen the holographic nature of geoengineering, and we've also seen that it's being done by off-worlders, and Wilhelm Reich found this himself. He found the off-world influence on this DOR attack on Earth. So if it's being done by off-worlders, we can't really know everything about it. So when a scientist is measuring pollutants in the air related to chemtrails, it could be the chemtrails. It could also be other pollutants in the air. So it really isn't any exact information on this. There are many sources, and again, we have to just pull the truth where we can. We have to figure out what the truth is.
Right. And Sharon, I'm now reminded of the meme you have in one of your presentations where it's just that crosshatch sky, and the text says, when science can no longer be trusted, we may need to rely on common sense. You can't just believe everything you're told, even if it comes from a source that's saying, oh, I'm accredited, I've done all this. And
even the ones that say they're anti-geoengineering activists, we just have to be very discerning.
Well, especially because of what we've learned, and we've seen that a lot of these groups are opposed to real solutions.
Well, it boggles my mind when a scientist knows about chemtrails and is measuring pollutants in the atmosphere. Clifford Carnicom is an example of a scientist who's been measuring air pollution levels related to chemtrails since about, I think, 1999. It's been a very long time.
Yeah, going on 20 years now. And
I'm just kind of confounded as to how a scientist working in this field wouldn't embrace orgone energy. Now, there are scientists like Ken Rolla, who we've had on our show 3 times, and he can explain exactly how it works to clean pollution out of the sky, and I talk about it all the time, that the orgone energy is an upside-down spiraling wave of energy from Earth to space that throws the chemtrail pollutants into space and away from Earth. Knowing that this is a possibility, it is confusing to me how a scientist wouldn't embrace that. Now, maybe Carnicom is more biologically based, maybe he doesn't understand the physics, but he should get with the program if he is concerned.
Perhaps he is a more mechanistic thinker than we think.
And that's an issue too, is mechanistic thinking in science. Wilhelm Reich had a real problem with this. The mechanistic way of thinking does not account for the variability in nature. And it's the kind of thinking in science that has led us to believing that a scientific theory that was created, at some point that's the way it is forever.
Oh yeah, it's set in stone, cannot be changed under any circumstances.
It just doesn't work that way. Nature is so variable. So yeah, perhaps it's just too out there for him to think about this spiraling faster than light energy, because a lot of the things that Wilhelm Reich found is just in direct opposition to traditional biology and traditional physics. Because he also even found out that life can spontaneously generate, and that threw the biological world on its ear.
So Reich was very upset at the mechanistic side, but on the other end of that spectrum is the mystical side, and he was just as aggravated with those people. And that brings us to another red flag, is when people start attributing positive results in the sky, in the energy field, what have you, when they attribute them to things that are other than us, other than humans, attributed to higher beings. Like one of the things Don Croft claims is that air spirits called sylphs are gobbling the chemtrails,
right?
Which is absolutely asinine. And in our research, we have found that that is not true at all. And I know for a fact, and I think you would agree, that Wilhelm Reich would be furious.
I know he would be. And the thing is that Don Croft has done so much great work, as we already just mentioned, in the Orgonite gifting movement. But when it comes to the science, this is where the discernment comes in. He doesn't understand the science of it. He doesn't want to understand the science of it.
No,
and,
he's staunchly opposed to it, in fact, which I find that kind of curious, because that you're leaving out a whole part of it.
Yeah, it's a little off-putting to me, to say the least. And I think that Don Croft has done great work and contributed greatly to the cleanup of our world through introducing the idea of Orgonite gifting. So we have to just take the good and then just leave out the nonsense. And when you're attributing the cleanup to higher beings that are, more advanced than we are, you're taking away the human power element. And the thing is that we are the ones cleaning up our world. This is what the government doesn't want us to know. This is what those businesses that are thriving on our ignorance don't want us to know. They don't want us to know that we have the power within us to clean up our world. We don't need any help. We don't have to be victims anymore. So I would advise Don Croft to read up on more of the science of it, but he is not interested, and that is fine. His contribution was Orgonite gifting, and he explained that Orgonite gifting will take down global tyranny, and he is absolutely correct about that. How the Orgonite works, he doesn't understand. But it does work, and he knows that. There's another aspect to it, too. It's not just this the sylph thing, which it makes my skin crawl every time I hear that word. I don't even like saying it. I don't like dignifying it. It's.
I think you said before, when you hear that word, your brain goes on strike and leaves the building.
It's one of the things that makes my brain go on strike. Other words like emojis makes my brain go on strike and leave the building.
Yeah, I can feel my cerebrum kind of melting right now. So
Sorry.
I understand.
There are others too, but let's not talk about words we don't like. But the other aspect to this higher beings cleaning up the sky for us is that I heard this a lot at Contact in the Desert, and I've heard this from others who listen to a lot of Gaia. They have this rhetoric. A lot of the speakers who are guests frequently on Gaia and who are speaking at Contact in the Desert say that there's a battle of good ETs versus bad ETs, and that the good ETs are saving us. Well, what about us? Are we just these little hapless victims
what
of
are we,
circumstance?
chopped liver?
I mean,
Yeah. Well, it's a disempowering narrative. And that's put forth by not just a lot of those people speaking at Contact in the Desert, but also the mystical people attributing things to air spirits. It is a disempowering agenda, whether that's the intention or not. It's not taking into account the humans that are taking the effort to make the Orgonite pieces and go out there in the field and distribute them and note the results.
I do recommend noting the results in a scientific way, even if you're just keeping them for yourself, because this is the evidence we'll compile over the next 10 years that will eventually prove to the world that Orgonite works. It cleans the atmosphere. It neutralizes electromagnetic fields. And sometimes people will see a plane spraying a little chemtrail that's very short, which is a breaking chemtrail, usually not necessarily a contrail, but some of these chemtrails that break apart into pieces in the Orgone vortex and sometimes disappear altogether. People will say, oh, that's one of the guys cleaning it up. I assure you that guy is not cleaning it up. I assure you that guy has every intention to pollute the atmosphere as much as possible. And the reason it's cleaning up is because some nice human beings put some Orgonite somewhere to help you out. And that's what it's all about. It's all about helping each other out.
And you'll never hear that mentioned by any of the people who are claiming that it's being cleaned for us by the good side or the alliance, which is absolutely absurd.
So you've got the government people, go to the government people, and then you've got the aliens are going to clean it up for you people.
Aliens are going to save us.
So who's going to save us, the government or the aliens? I don't think either one, quite frankly. And And a lot of people have these grandiose ideas on how we're going to clean it up. And that's another red flag. I would look out very, very carefully for anybody who claims to have a grandiose scheme to clean up chemtrails. Because there is no grandiose scheme. It's just Orgonite gifting. And that's where Don Croft gets it right. He says simple Orgonite. Just make simple Orgonite. The
Keep it
easy
simple.
tower busters and distribute them. So, I don't know. There's people out there that have supposedly have cloud busters, Wilhelm Reich style. There's
Allegedly.
Allegedly, and that they think that this is going to be how we clean it up. Well,
What did I just say earlier? You can't stay in 1953 forever. This work has to progress.
Yeah.
And cloudbusters were dangerous to use.
Well, no, not just anyone can use one. So that goes back again to we need to get someone else to do it for us. Not just anyone can operate a Wilhelm Reich cloudbuster. It's dangerous. You can cause cataclysmic weather changes if you don't know what you're doing. It's very, very powerful technology. On the other hand, Don Croft style chembuster, or Don Croft's Orgonite cloudbuster is another word for it. That's a simple device that anyone can make, and our friend John Robson makes them, and he was a guest on this show explaining that. And actually, if you go to thechembo.com, you can listen to him and others speak on the Orgone Energy panel, and John Robson explains how his chembusters work. The chembuster has magnificent results in sky cleaning for many miles around, and it balances the energy because it's a giant piece of Orgonite with the copper pipes coming out. So it looks like similar to a Wilhelm Reich cloudbuster, but the Don Croft model is safe for anyone to use, as well as Orgonite. Orgonite is safe for anyone to use. And no, it's not as powerful as the original cloudbuster, but you can't just give that kind of power to people who aren't experienced in operating it. Plus, the cloudbuster used hazardous materials to agitate the orgone. So that's not good for us to do. That's fine for a professional to do. But I would say for the general public, Orgonite's the way to go.
Mm-hmm. And plus, again, this isn't the 50s anymore. We have lots of DOR sources around. And the cloudbuster, the original cloudbuster, doesn't do anything about those. Those are all still emitting and still causing damage to the atmosphere and all life around it. Mm-hmm. What Orgonite does is it neutralizes those sources, whereas the chembuster, the Wilhelm Reich cloudbuster simply does not do that.
Well, what it does is it moves the orgone of the atmosphere. It will increase the orgone concentration in an area. So you will probably have a temporary reduction in DOR as it's infusing the area with OR. But if you want a permanent, lasting solution that can be employed every day of the year, then neutralize the cell phone tower with a piece of Orgonite. And that is a lasting solution to the DOR. Granted, there are areas that need extra help, such as the Central Valley. We have busted so many towers there. We've gone on every major road through the Central Valley already. I can't even name how many places we've been. However, we do still see a lingering DOR layer over the Central Valley from the mountains here. And, I do see it lifting throughout the day. But it's very heavy concentration of deadly radiation down there, which looks like smog. Mm-hmm. That's what it looks like.
Valleys hold it in. Reich found that out.
In a case like that, I would say, yes, some big guns are needed. A safer way to do it than to use the Wilhelm Reich model of cloudbuster would be to use DeWin Gardner's grounder, which you can learn about in The Science of Rain. And that's something that anyone can make, doesn't use hazardous materials, and clears a large area of DOR. So absolutely, in valleys, we need more help. And I don't think it's bad that people are using Wilhelm Reich's cloudbuster, if they actually are. I've only heard people mention it, such as Peter Robbins and James DeMayo. I've heard some of these researchers and scientists mention using the cloudbuster, although I don't see any real documentation of it. So I don't know. Maybe they are, maybe they're not.
Well, we certainly can't just trust what they say.
I definitely cannot. Because there's another problem of the secrecy. And if anybody's keeping secrets, well, I don't trust them, because there is no secret to cleaning chemtrails and neutralizing deadly radiation sources.
The secret is there is no secret.
There is no secret. Orgonite does it. You can use other similar type devices, but Orgonite is the most effective device to take care of this problem. So I am very wary of anybody who has any secrets involved with this.
And you should be too.
Well, you don't have to listen to me. but that's just my opinion on it. Now, a big issue is that a lot of the more known researchers and scientists in orgone energy, such as the ones I mentioned, Peter Robbins and James DeMeo, are very much against orgonite. And that does concern me because if this is a technology to be embraced, I understand that these researchers probably have a comfortable lifestyle and grants because they're able to do what they want to do. They could study orgonomy, but they keep it in the past as kind of a historical curiosity and don't do any current applications.
Like I said, they keep it in 1953 and
Right.
never progress.
So we were listening to an interview. It was on the Higher Side Chats with Peter Robbins on Wilhelm Reich. And I was, I'm always excited to hear anything about Wilhelm Reich. But, everything in this interview was kind of like just historical stuff. And the part that got me was when the interviewer asked him about orgonite.
Well, he did that right away. That was right at the beginning.
Yeah,
that he asked
and
him
I still
about
listened to the whole thing anyway. But he did ask him about orgonite, and Peter Robbins kind of chuckled. He said, no, those don't work, I mean, okay, why don't they work? Because Ken Rolla and Duane Gardner are scientists who explain exactly how it works and have shown that it works with photographic evidence, and so have we. So tell me, how does it not work? If it produces orgone energy, if it creates a scalar wave vortex which removes heavy metals from the sky and neutralizes EMF, and we've seen it in one place after another produce the exact same air cleaning results and rain making, then how is it not working?
And why also would 30 seconds into the show they be first topic just dismissal, just outright dismissal of it? Mm-hmm. You got to wonder what the reason is for that. And it's not like these guys are saying that they don't know anything about it. They are ardently against it.
They are against orgonite, and if they understand how orgone energy works, they would understand how orgonite worked. If they know how the orgone accumulator works, which is with layers of organic and inorganic material, the inorganic being metallic, they would see that the orgonite, which Carl Wells invented based on Wilhelm Reich's research, was made with a combination of organic, the resin, and inorganic, the metal shavings, as well as other elements, quartz crystals, and a copper coil. But if they understood how the accumulator accumulated orgone out of the atmosphere, they would understand why Carl Wells described the orgonite as essentially like the accumulator, something that he described it more as something that gathers orgone. However, Ken Rolla and Duane Gardner, as well as us, have seen that it actually is generating the scalar waves or the orgone energy.
And, to be fair, I will also say this. They referenced orgonite that you see at fairs and events and things like that. And to be fair, a lot of those orgonite that you see, they're called orgonite, but they aren't actually functional orgonite pieces.
Right.
Like they will not contain the right things in them. They won't have a catalyzing resin, or they'll have big hunks of metal in them. They won't be made properly, yet they're being called orgonite.
Right, and Don Croft would agree with them on that that's not true orgonite. So, yeah, they might be referencing an orgonite that's not made right. If you go to thekembo.com and you check out the orgonite page on the website and scroll through, you can read all about orgonite, and then there's a bunch of links of results we've had with it, and then there's a bunch of videos that teach you how to make your own. So you can learn what goes in there and how to make functioning orgonite, and you can see the results we've had. So how can the scientists and researchers say, oh, it just doesn't work, without looking into it? Well, that's concerning to me, and my theory on that is that they would not get the grants that they get, or the money to continue their work. Mm-hmm. Where does that come from? It comes from these parasitic corporations. That's where the grants come from, government, companies that give out grants to scientists. And if they were to say, oh, by the way, here's an energy source that will cure cancer and end drought and remove all air pollution, then I don't think that they would keep getting those grants, because these parasitic corporations depend on these problems for their profits.
That's right.
So there was also a woman in Ashland, Oregon named James DeMeo. And for future reference, I'm going to refer to James as a man and a he. But if you look at him online, but we know differently. Anyway.
We've seen evidence that may indicate otherwise.
So James DeMeo has a lot of actually very good research on orgone energy. I mean, up to a point. And I read a book of his called The Orgone Accumulator Handbook, which was published in 1989. And this book was endorsed by Wilhelm Reich's daughter, Eva Reich. And it has some great stuff in it. I mean, it teaches you how to make an accumulator. It teaches you how to make the various inventions that Reich was working with. And, it goes up to a certain point where I think that there's a point in time where James DeMayo kind of loses it, because once the Orgonite came into the picture, that's when he started putting out a lot of strange information.
Right.
Up to a point, because this book, it had a lot of really useful information, and I actually really recommend the book.
But that's 1989, a good 5 to 7 years before Orgonite was invented.
Right, and it's at least a decade before Don and Carol Croft started making and distributing Orgonite. Mm-hmm. So this is the
Which
part
is when the cell phone towers started coming up in mass numbers.
Mm-hmm. Well, even the Orgone Accumulator Handbook talks about cell towers. So they were around back then, and we saw them in movies in the 80s,
They were around, like in Repo Man.
Mm-hmm. There's cell towers.
They were around, but not until around the late 90s, early 2000s did they really start popping up like the infestation that they are.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, I do recommend the book, but I also would have to say, if you go to the website for the Orgone Lab in Ashland, Oregon, you're going to find tirades against Don Croft on that website. And it's very off-putting to me, because I agree with Don Croft on most points. It's only on some of these mystical things that I don't agree with him. But I do agree with him on most of his points. And James DeMayo is very careless in his dismissal of Orgonite and orgone energy devices. For example, he lists all this craziness going on the web right now. This is back in 2002, by the way, that he wrote these things. He lumps in the Chembuster, Orgonite, and he says orgone zappers into the same category. Now, obviously, he's not looking into what these devices actually are. The zapper is not an orgone energy device. It's an invention that was created by Hulda Clark, which is designed to put an electrical charge through your body that kills parasites but doesn't harm you.
A mild electrical charge.
Very mild. And it's done with a 9-volt battery. And Don Croft happens to make these too and sell them, but it's not related to Orgonite. He just happens to do both. So the fact that James DeMayo would mix the zapper in with it shows that he doesn't understand, and that he called it an orgone zapper. It shows that he doesn't understand what it is.
Right.
It was invented by a different scientist and completely unrelated to orgone energy.
Well, it shows that he's got an assassination campaign, practically,
Mm-hmm.
or character assassination rather, against Don Croft, and he's willing to just say whatever he has to smear him.
And here's one of the really upsetting things that he said, which is that he said that the Chembuster, which is the Orgonite cloudbuster invented by Don Croft, it creates drought. He said it makes drought. And I know it doesn't. We've seen them in California.
Well, nothing could be further from the truth.
And I don't know where he gets this from, because it's not based in any research. He says if you have one already, that the best thing you could do is dismantle it immediately and get those copper pipes recycled. Now, this is just curious to me that we've seen this device work time and time again. And John Robson, who has made many of these cloudbusters, has distributed them around San Luis Obispo area, as well as heavy Orgonite gifting. And those guys had their lake levels. They have a local lake that was completely dry, and the next year was completely full again because of the work he was doing with the Chembusters and Orgonite.
Well, all I have to say is that if somebody doesn't understand something, and okay, maybe even if they're a little stubborn about it, to still just mention these erroneous claims over and over and over again, it's not scientific. Mm-hmm. What business does this man have in just declaring something to be this way when reality is the opposite end of the spectrum?
It's very odd. You would think that anybody who has researched Reich's work would understand how these devices worked and would be very happy for the modern applications. Perhaps it goes back to what I figured earlier, which is that he's getting grants, and if he was to release information on the energy source that would end global tyranny, then that would be the end of his grants. I mean, it may just be that...
And perhaps the end of a lifestyle that is used to having that grant money coming in year after year after year.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, if I phased myself out forever, that'd be great.
And I second that.
Yeah, if
we're trying to phase ourselves out.
Exactly. So if everybody's just making Orgonite and they've taken care of all the DOR sources and we never see chemtrails anymore and we're getting nice rains and life is flourishing, I'm happy. I'm done. I'm retiring,
Yeah.
and I'm very happy to do it.
Me too.
And so if anybody out there has a GoFundMe site and wants you to ship them around the world to go to chemtrail conferences, and they want to do everything they can to keep this information exclusive and to keep the solution hidden, then I would be very, very wary of those people.
It boggles the mind. It really just, after all we've seen in 3 years of working with this energy and versus 2 years or so of being in complete and total fear of the whole thing and having no solutions and no hope whatsoever, I feel, Sharon, that we have done our best to compile the evidence and draw the comparisons between Reich's work and our work, and just to make it so plain and obvious to people what's going on. The fact that people would still listen to these, I don't know what word to call them. Like, I want to actively, I want to call them active saboteurs. They are trying to keep people held back, keep them in a state of fear, and keep the problems going on. All anti-geoengineering activists are controlled opposition. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Yep.
I don't care.
If one of them claims to know about orgone energy and is still involved with these fear-mongering groups, they don't understand their life force energy. They do not understand their power. They do not know who they are. There's a reason that we talk about orgone energy and the assumed name certificate, and those are our topics. This is all about our own power. This is about just getting back to who we really are. We are creators of our own world, and it's that simple. We need to take back our own power. The anti-geoengineering groups are all about being helpless. And no, they don't understand what government is, because they say to appeal to the government to end a problem that
they don't understand. And they don't understand what geoengineering is, because they neurotically fixate on these heavy metals, and they do not mention EMF. They do not mention the cell towers.
Oh no, they do. They say microwaved. Anybody who says that they're microwaving the storms and keeping them from coming in does not get it at all.
Same with the people who are talking about NexRad. That means nothing.
It means nothing to me, because the cell phone tower grids throughout our communities are what are at home. They're close and personal. They're right here. This is what's causing the issue. And that's why Dwayne Gardner says in his book, The Science of Rain, that rainstorms will go around cities because of the power sources in our cities that are positively ionizing the atmosphere. And yes, they may be microwave towers, but it's not how it works that they microwave and superheat a storm and prevent it from coming in. That's not how it works. They positively ionize the atmosphere to inhibit the hydrogen bonding of water molecules, okay? That's how it works. And the clouds fall apart. So, neutralize the cell towers, negatively ionize the atmosphere, put in a healthy orgone concentration, and the problem is solved.
As we saw with the ending of the California drought, the engineered drought, which officially ended on April 7th of this year, but the ending process was, it became underway in 2014, and it's sort of continued to the point where they can no longer claim that there's a drought, because even the most brainwashed individual can see what's going on.
Well, it's summertime now, and it doesn't rain in the summer in California, so let the brainwashing begin.
Yeah, you're going to get a lot of these articles saying, oh, there's no rain. Hello, it's June, it's summer, it doesn't rain in Southern California at this time. It's not noteworthy at all to mention that there's no rain. That's natural.
Well, I urge you to go to thekembo.com and take a look at the photo gallery, because there you'll see some very interesting examples of different types of skies. I hope to alleviate some of your fears. when you understand what's going on up there, you'll start to understand what the cleanup process looks like, which is interesting in itself. So please do go to thekembo.com, check out the photo gallery, and, understand where we're coming from. We're not going to join forces with the anti-geoengineering activists because we used to do that and we found it doesn't get anything done. So we make Orgonite, we gift Orgonite, and we teach you how to do the same. So right now you can go and make your own with my tutorial video, and we'll put up a specific Tower Buster video. But just so you know, all you have to do is just substitute a cheaper resin and aluminum shavings, and you've got a Tower Buster. It doesn't matter what shape. You can use the muffin shape or pyramids. All the Orgonite will work the same way. So check out the video, learn to make your own, and take some time to read stuff on the website because there's a lot of information and links to other people's work. And I find it a joy to watch videos since I've already watched them all. For me, it's in the past, but for you, it may be new. So I also recommend checking out Aya's page. You'll see the links. It says useful links. It's all in the Orgonite section. And watch those beautiful videos he made of how he cleaned the skies in Switzerland.
And please don't look at it on your phone. Seriously. Go to a computer. They still make computers, as far as I know. Go to a computer.
Not very good ones, but...
Go to a computer. Get Windows 95 if you have to. I don't care. Go to a computer and look at the website. Do not look on your phone. You will not get the type of information you need.
Yeah, it's much easier to see it on the
computer. This is not a quick fix thing.
Yeah.
You have to
take your
spend
time.
some time.
It took us years and years. I'm still learning. I have a feeling that I'll find out I'm wrong about stuff over time. I'm just giving you the information I have now to the best of my ability. So, one more thing. James DeMeo says chemtrails don't exist. So, in some ways he may be right if they are holographic in nature.
But that's not the way
That's not the way he makes it sound.
No.
So, do they exist? Don't they exist? All I know is when the sky looks crappy and we put out Orgonite, the sky doesn't look so crappy anymore.
And we've shown this happening time and time and time again. So please go to that website, thekembo.com. There's links to everything that we do on that one website. You can find all the other stuff, including the photo gallery. Learn what the sky looks like when you hack the chemtrail program, because that's what it is. It's a computer program. And when you hack it, everything changes, and you'll feel the difference just like we did. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Human Frequency. Please join us next time. Thank you.